A stick with a huge hook on it, used to impale fish? You dead-gum right I need one of those. Let's make one. I want to build a gaff because I want to use it for bow fishing primarily. It's been a bunch of times that I've shot a gar, and as I'm pulling in, it get off, especially bigger gar. I kind of got my bow tuned to where it won't go all the way through carp, but the bad thing about it is if you shoot a real big gar, sometimes it ain't got enough power to go for the arrow to go all the way through. So a lot of times when it just goes in, it doesn't come out the other side, the gar will end up coming off. It usually happens right there at the boat. So that's what I'm hoping that use this gaff for and get them in the boat. I've never made a gaff before. I've never owned a gaff before. But I do have the internet, and I've watched some videos of how to do it. So I'm going to try it. It's going to be kind of trial and error. Like I said in the beginning, it's a stick with a giant hook on one end of it. Why wouldn't I want one? It's freaking cool. So maybe we can both learn something on this video. I'll learn something at the end if I don't do it right, or maybe I can learn that building a gaff's pretty easy. One way or the other, I'm gonna get me a giant hook on a stick, and I'm gonna try to impale some fish with it. First thing, we're gonna need a handle for a gaff. Any kind of wooden dowel will work. I use this old net. A broomstick handle will work, or if you have to, you can go to Sloughs and just get a wooden dowel. I cut this one down to 32 inches. You can make it any length you want to. I kind of wanted a shorter one for my boat, and I'll still able to use the net if I ever need it. Next, you're going to need a gaff hook. I picked this up from a tackle store for $4.99. You need to put it on your dowel where it goes, and the opposite end of the hook end will have like a little spike on it that's going to actually go into your dowel to help hold it in place. Get you a marker. Once you get the hook where it needs to be, put you a little mark of where it's going to go. Then you're going to find a drill bit. It's about the same size as that spike end. You want it to be a little bit smaller because you want it to be kind of a snug fit into the dowel. I think I use a 9/64, but I'm pretty sure like any gaff hook might be slightly different. So just find a drill bit that's a little bit smaller and drill your hole where you made your mark. You basically just want to drill your hole the depth of that spike end of the gaff. Once you get it drilled, you can go ahead and pop it in place. You're ready to rock and roll. Now we're going to need some mason line. I got this at Lowe's. They had bigger rolls and smaller rolls. I got the smaller roll, and it ended up being more than enough, and I think it was $3.18. I got pink because my daughter was with me, and she said I needed to get pink. I need to get a piece of tape and tape your line to your dowel. I did mine probably too low. If I had to do it again, I'd probably come up towards the bottom of the hook, maybe another inch. And I also should have had my string facing towards the other end of the handle instead of towards the hook. But the way I did it, it worked out fine. It just has a little ridge for where I had to run the string back over itself. Now you just start wrapping the string up towards the hook. It's kind of tedious. It takes a little bit. The hook end ended up being a lot harder than the handle end because the hook keeps getting in the way. Probably a good idea to put something on the end of the hook to keep from scratching yourself, which I didn't think of until I scratched myself and I was too lazy to go find anything. But just slowly work it up. Don't just kind of keep the string tight. Don't overlap it on top of itself. And I use my left thumb to try to keep the strings tight. Like I would go around like maybe 3 times around the dowel, and then I'd take my left thumb and just kind of push the strings down tight on top of each other. And just work your way all the way up to the top. And once you get about, say, 4 wraps from the end of your dowel, let's say maybe a 1/4 inch, you're going to take a shorter piece of string,
maybe say 8 inches, and you're going to make a loop with it. You're going to take the loop end and hang it off the top of your dowel. Then you're going to go ahead and start wrapping again over on top of your loop string until you get to the very top of the dowel and you can't wrap it anymore. You're going to want to at least wrap on top of your loop at least 3 or 4 times. Now once you've wrapped all the way into your loop as tall as you can, you're going to go ahead and cut your string, maybe about 6 inches, and you're going to pull it through your loop. You're going to try to keep everything halfway tight, and then what you're going to do is you're going to grab the 2 ends of the loop and then yank really hard, and what it's going to do is going to pull your string through those 3 or 4 wraps that you did. I kind of did this end out of the view of the camera on accident, but the other end showed up a lot better. So if you don't get what I'm doing, watch the end part, and it shows up a lot clearer. Now you're going to cut your string about 1 inch, and then you're going to take a lighter and burn it to where it starts melting. Then take something hard and smooth it out onto the string before it cools down. It'll kind of melt itself into it and give you a smooth finish. Now you're going to repeat the whole process down at the bottom. Now if you're making a long gaff, you can do this again in the middle, but since mine's short, I figured just wrapping the hook and one down at the handle end would be just fine. In hindsight, I wish I would have cut the bottom part of my dowel off, because that's the factory edge and it was rounded. And it kind of gave me a little trouble down towards the end because the string kept wanting to slide off. But I made it work the way it was. Once you get down toward the end, you're going to go ahead and make you a loop again and wrap it around it at least 3 or 4 times. Pull your string through your loop. Once you get to the top, you can't wrap it anymore. Keep everything halfway tight. Then you're going to grab the 2 bottom tail ends of your loop and yank your string through. Just like that. Now just like the top, you're going to trim your string, take your lighter, start melting it, and then smooth it out. It'll melt into itself. Now you're done. Now it's time for the next step. I'm sure if you just left it like this, over time that string would fray out or come loose, so we need a way to secure it. I'm going to do that with a little epoxy. For epoxy, I use DevCon 2-ton epoxy. It's the same epoxy I got from my lures. I just had a couple of them sitting around, so I decided to try it. And with this gaff, I was able to do the top and the bottom with a full tube. You can get a tube off Amazon Prime for $5.50. So go ahead and put half your tube into some kind of cup and put your cap back on, and then mix it for 30 seconds. I found out it's pretty important with DevCon to mix for 30 seconds. If you don't mix it long enough, it'll end up being kind of tacky. So count the 30 seconds real slow as you're mixing. I ended up getting some real cheap little paint brushes from Sloughs. I think they're 99 cents a piece. Now you want to hang your gaff up on something and start brushing your epoxy on. If you use this epoxy, working time's kind of short, so you don't want to be dilly-dallying around. I'm sure you could use any kind of epoxy. You could probably get some with a slower cure than the DevCon 2-ton. I just had it, so that's why I used it, and I'm used to using it for my lures, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into, and I like the way it turned out anyway. So you don't have to use DevCon. You can go to Sloughs, they got all kinds of epoxy. But I was able to use half the tube for the top, and then I turned around and mixed the other half and was able to do the bottom and come out pretty good on just one coat on each one. You just want to kind of eyeball it and make sure that, you know, all the threads, they'll kind of soak up some of it, so make sure you don't have any dry spots when you're working. And I went maybe 1 inch below the thread around the wood. I decided not to do the whole handle because I thought maybe it would be too slick. Plus, I knew I didn't have enough epoxy to do that. and I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of money and keep this project as cheap as I could. I let it set up for about 24 hours, and it seems like everything turned out real well. It's not tacky at all. It seems like a real good cure, and I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. I think it looks alright, especially since I've never made one before. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I'm kind of excited about putting this thing to use. I'm ready to go bow fishing, see if I can't gaff me a gar.